I'm a 25-year-old woman, and I was adopted when I was 6. My adoptive parents, Tom and Miranda, already had 2 sons when I came into their home. Nathan was 7 and Eli was 4. From the outside, it probably looked like a perfect little family adding one more child out of kindness. But inside the house, it was always clear who belonged and who didn't. I kept my last name when I was adopted. My birth mom had asked for it, and at the time, Miranda agreed. Later though, that little detail started to create tension. Miranda made comments about not matching names on school documents, or how it might confuse teachers. It wasn't said outright, but I could feel the message. I wasn't really one of them. My room was the smallest, and while Nathan and Eli got themed makeovers, Star Wars one year, then baseball, I got hand-me-down sheets and neutral paint. Birthday parties were different too. The boys had bounce houses and backyard cookouts. I got cupcakes after dinner, maybe a card. I remember one year I asked for a pool party like Eli's. Miranda said the weather wasn't right, even though it was July. There was a wall of family photos in the hallway. Framed prints from beach trips, Christmas mornings, birthday cakes. Every picture featured the boys, Tom, Miranda, and even Joan, their grandmother. If I was in a photo, it was a candid stuck to the fridge with a magnet, and even that didn't last long. Joan never hid how she felt about me. Every Christmas, Nathan and Eli would get expensive gadgets or new bikes. I'd get a sweater 3 sizes too big, usually still with a clearance tag. She once handed it to me and said, "You've grown into a fine young lady," considering. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but it didn't sound like a compliment. Whenever relatives visited, they'd talk about the boys and their milestones, soccer trophies, science fair ribbons. I was included if I happened to be in the room, and even then, it felt like an afterthought. One of Miranda's cousins once asked if I was a neighbor. Tom filled out emergency contact forms at school and forgot to list me as his child. The front office had to call Miranda to get clarification. She brushed it off, saying it was just paperwork. But I remembered that day clearly because the nurse asked if I had anyone else to call. I didn't. When I was 13, the whole family went to Disney World. I didn't go. They said it was because of finals, but the trip happened after my exams were already over. They brought back souvenirs for everyone. Mine was a pen. I heard the same phrase growing up, "You're lucky we chose you." It sounded kind, but the more I heard it, the more it felt like a warning. Like I should be grateful, stay quiet, and never ask for more than what I was given. Nathan treated me like a sister from day one. He stood up for me when Joan made snide remarks, and he'd sneak extra cupcakes to my room when I was left out. Eli was different. He copied Joan, cold, distant, like he thought caring about me would make him less real in the family. I graduated high school and only Nathan showed up. Tom and Miranda were traveling that week. They didn't send a card, no phone call, just a photo on social media of them on a boat somewhere sunny. By 17, I had a job at a diner after school. I saved most of what I earned, paid for my own clothes, my phone, and even helped cover gas when Nathan drove me to work. I learned early to rely on myself. One night, I brought up the uneven treatment. I tried to be calm. I didn't accuse anyone, just asked if maybe they'd noticed it too. Miranda got defensive fast. She said I was imagining things, that I always played the victim, that I didn't understand what it meant to raise a child that wasn't really yours. The last time I ate dinner with them all together, Joan made a comment about inheritance, how everything stays in the bloodline. She said it while looking directly at me. No one corrected her. Not Tom, not Miranda, not even Eli. I didn't argue. I just finished my food and excused myself. I wasn't going to beg to be loved anymore. I knew they'd made their decision long ago. And I made mine that night too. I wouldn't spend the rest of my life proving I belonged. I'd build something better than what they gave me. Something real. I'm 25 now, and I'm engaged. Dean proposed on a quiet night in November, just us in our apartment, with takeout on the table and the dog asleep by the heater. No big show. Just a ring he picked with help from my foster sister and a smile that didn't need words. He's a school counselor, the kind who remembers every student's name and buys extra supplies with his own money. His family? Full of hugs, loud laughter, and homemade food. The first time I met his mom, she gave me her mother's recipe book and called me baby girl. No one ever needed convincing that I was part of them. We started planning the wedding early, nothing huge, just a backyard setup at Dean's parents' place, food trucks, fairy lights, the works. I sent out invites to everyone, including Tom and Miranda. 2 weeks later, I got a call. It was Joan. She asked if Dean had any real family coming to the wedding or just the usual charity cases. That's what she called them. I hung up without answering. Miranda never said anything about the invite, but Nathan told me she was busy helping Eli's fiancé plan their wedding. Dress fittings, cake tastings, all of it. When I asked her to come with me to pick out a cake, she said she was too swamped with work. The next week, she posted pictures of a brunch with Eli's fiancé and her bridal party. Dean's mom took my side over completely. She helped me pick the dress, test the food, and set up chairs on the morning of the wedding. Nathan walked me down the aisle. He showed up early with a gift box of little things he'd saved from when we were younger, notes we passed in school, a birthday card I made him when I was 10. He was the only one from my adoptive family who showed up. At the rehearsal dinner, Joan caused a scene. Right after dessert, she stood up and made a speech about how I should be more grateful for being taken in. She said it like I'd been rescued from a fire and given shelter. Dean's mom stood up right after her, didn't raise her voice, didn't argue, just told Joan she could either sit down and show respect or leave. Joan left before the plates were cleared. On my side of the wedding, the seats were full. My old social worker was there. So were 2 of the foster girls I grew up with and the director of the last group home I stayed in. Dean's cousins brought folding chairs just in case, and I'm glad they did. We ran out of space. Everyone hugged me like they were proud to be there. No one needed a family tree to know where they belonged. 3 days after the wedding, a letter came in the mail. It was from Miranda. She wrote that they'd felt pushed away, that I'd made them uncomfortable by choosing sides. There was no mention of Joan's outburst or their absence. Just 2 pages of blame, folded neatly and signed without love. I didn't reply. Instead, I called a lawyer. I wasn't planning revenge or anything big. I just wanted to make sure everything I built from that point on had no ties to them. I updated my will. I listed Nathan, Dean, and Dean's mom as my emergency contacts. I gave power of attorney to someone who'd actually answer the phone if I needed help. A few months later, Nathan told me Joan had a mild stroke. Miranda wanted help managing her estate. I said no. I never called. I never visited. I didn't even ask what hospital she was in. When the will was read, Nathan asked if I wanted to come. I said yes, not out of hope, just curiosity. The lawyer read everything out loud, line by line. Joan left money to Eli, family heirlooms to Miranda, and her house to someone in Eli's wife's family. My name was never mentioned. After the reading, I stood up, nodded to the lawyer, and walked out. No tears, no speech, no questions. That night, Nathan called me. He was livid, said he felt sick to his stomach sitting in that room, said he was embarrassed to share their last name. I told him not to worry about it. They could have the name, the house, the money, all of it. I wasn't trying to win. I was building something that couldn't be taken away. Let them keep their legacy. I'm making my own. A few weeks after the will reading, Dean and I started something new. We took part of the money we'd saved from the wedding, some of it gifts, some of it our own, and used it to start a scholarship. It was in Joan's name. We called it the Joan Whitman Legacy Fund. We made the fund specifically for kids aging out of foster care or adopted later in life. No essays about grades, no perfect transcripts needed. Just your story and what you plan to do with a second chance. We wanted it to go to the kind of kids people like Joan ignored. We launched with a short video. Dean's friend helped put it together. It featured 4 students already accepted as part of our pilot round. They talked about sleeping in cars, switching schools 5 times in 1 year, never getting a birthday card. It wasn't sad for the sake of being sad. It was just real. That's what caught people's attention. Within a few days, the video started making rounds online. A local news outlet picked it up and asked to do a follow-up. They filmed us at the little office space we rented downtown, zoomed in on letters from applicants pinned on a bulletin board. By the end of the month, we had over 140 applications. I read all of them myself. Miranda called me a few days after the news piece aired. She said the scholarship was a misrepresentation of Joan's memory, that we'd used her name for something she would have never supported, but she never acknowledged what Joan actually stood for. I told her that was exactly the point. It wasn't about honoring who Joan was. It was about fixing what she refused to. Dean's mom quietly donated a chunk of her savings to the fund. Then his cousins added to it. A friend from his school district started a fundraiser, and we hit our second-year goal early. We added 3 more spots. One of the girls chosen in the second round had been in the same group home I lived in at 13. Nathan asked if he could help. Not because he felt bad, because he was proud. He started helping review applications and manage email correspondence. He'd call just to read parts of letters that stuck with him. One applicant wrote that the scholarship felt like someone finally saw her on purpose. That stuck. Meanwhile, Eli found out Nathan was involved and lost it. He sent him a message calling him a traitor, said he was turning his back on the real family. Nathan didn't reply. He sent me a screenshot and then blocked him. We decided to host a dinner for the first group of scholarship recipients. It was casual, potluck style, folding tables under string lights in the community center's backyard. I invited the board members, our donors, Dean's family, and my old social worker. Then, almost as a dare to myself, I included Tom, Miranda, Nathan, and Eli in the invite list. No pressure, just information. Only one of them showed up. Miranda walked in late, wearing a plain blouse and flats. No makeup, no fuss. She didn't bring anything or speak to anyone at first. I just looked around and took a seat near the back, her expression unreadable. I didn't make a big deal about it. When it was time to speak, I stood up, thanked everyone, and talked about what the fund meant. I said it wasn't about replacing families, it was about making space for the ones we build ourselves. No names, no shade, just truth. When I finished, everyone clapped. Miranda clapped too, twice, maybe 3 times, and then looked down at her lap. She left quietly before dessert. We didn't talk that night. She didn't ask for a ride or leave a note, but that didn't matter. That night wasn't about her. It was about the kids sitting around those tables, laughing about dorm life and comparing phone plans. One of them gave me a keychain that said thank you for seeing me. That night, Dean asked if I'd ever wanted an apology. I told him, no, I didn't need one. The silence said enough. The work said more. We went home, cleared the dishes, and posted the next application cycle the next morning. Round 3, bigger budget, new faces, same mission. About 8 months after Joan's funeral, her house went up for sale. It was a 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch, big garden out front, and stained glass windows she used to brag about. Growing up, I wasn't allowed in most of the rooms. She'd say things like children belong outside or don't touch that. I'd sit on the steps while Nathan and Eli got cookies in the kitchen. Nathan texted me a screenshot from a private listing site. Joan's house wasn't being listed publicly. It was quietly circulated among extended family, with a note that it should stay in the bloodline. He heard about it through a mutual friend and thought I should know. Dean helped me set up a small LLC. I didn't want my name on the bid. The offer went through as cash, full price, no contingencies. Between our savings, Dean's contribution, and help from his parents, we covered the amount. Eli found out. He contacted the estate lawyer and tried to stop the sale, said it was about family legacy, and claimed the buyer had no business owning something that belonged in bloodline hands. The executor didn't care. They weren't family, just someone closing a file. The deal went through. The house was mine. The sale closed 2 weeks later. Eli and Miranda didn't know until the paperwork was done, and the sign in the yard came down. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The house was in rough shape. Mold in the attic. Plumbing from the 60s. Wallpaper peeling in every hallway. I hired local crews and worked side by side with them. Ripped out carpeting. Painted every room. Redid the floors. Cleaned out the attic myself. All the family stuff left inside, photo albums, Joan's old furniture, the dusty boxes marked Christmas. I packed it up. No note, no explanation. I dropped everything off at Miranda's doorstep and drove away. Once the inside was clean, I changed the sign by the mailbox. Haven House. It was the name of the foster home where I stayed when I was 10. The first place where someone remembered my birthday. The first place I ever got a full plate of food without asking. We turned the house into transitional housing for young women aging out of care. Dean helped write the mission statement. I took over the city paperwork. The first 3 residents moved in 6 weeks after we opened. Dean set up a career prep program in the common room, mock interviews, job skills, budgeting basics. The girls called him Coach D. He showed up every Wednesday with snacks and binders. I ran the house full-time, hiring a caseworker and night supervisor with the scholarship's overflow funds. Neighbors dropped off couches, toasters, books, even a full bedroom set. A retired nurse came by once a week to offer health checkups. The house started to fill with noise, the kind I never heard there growing up. Music from phones, footsteps on stairs, laughter through walls. One morning, Miranda showed up. She didn't knock, just walked in through the open back door while I was arranging new towels in the linen closet. She didn't say hello, just walked from room to room, slow, like she was in a museum. She stopped in the kitchen and stared at the new tile. She looked around and said, "You made it look different." I told her, this place never felt like home until now. She didn't respond. She walked out the same way she came in. I haven't seen her since. 3 days later, Eli sent an email to the Haven House account, said I was ruining Grandma's legacy and that he'd do something about it. I blocked him. Phone, email, socials, gone. No response. No second chances. This house had already been taken from me once. Now it was mine, and I wasn't giving it back. A few months after Haven House opened, one of my old teachers called to catch up. She mentioned Tom's name, said she'd been invited to his retirement party at the country club downtown. That was the first I'd heard about it. Nathan confirmed it. The party was real. Formal invites had been sent out weeks ago. Eli helped plan it. I hadn't been included. Not on the guest list, not in the planning, not even in the slideshow they put together. My name didn't come up once. I called my teacher again and asked if I could tag along as her guest. She didn't hesitate. Dean said he'd come too, not to start anything, just to stand next to me while we looked the truth in the face. We arrived right before the speeches started. Dean wore a navy suit. I wore a simple black dress and flats. We walked in quietly, took seats near the back. A few heads turned. One of Joan's friends stared for a full minute, then turned to whisper to the woman next to her. Tom stood at the front of the room beside a projector screen filled with family photos, fishing trips, Christmas trees, graduation caps. All of them were of Nathan, Eli, and grandkids. I wasn't in a single one. When Tom started speaking, he thanked everyone for being part of his journey. He said Nathan and Eli had made him proud. He told a story about Eli winning a science fair. He mentioned Nathan's help organizing the party. He never said my name, not once. After the applause, I stood up, nodded politely to my teacher, and left. Dean followed without a word. We didn't wait for cake. We didn't stop to greet anyone. Outside, one of the board members from the scholarship fund walked up and squeezed my hand. Another nodded and said, "You don't need to be in that room." On the drive home, Dean said, "That room didn't deserve you." We stopped for coffee. Didn't talk about it again. The next day, Nathan called. He'd stayed after the party and pulled Tom aside. He asked why I hadn't been mentioned. Tom muttered something about complicated feelings. Nathan told him it wasn't complicated. He said, "You just chose not to see her." Then he left too. The following week, I hosted a dinner at Haven House. Not a party, just food, folding chairs, and people who showed up for each other. The girls living in the house helped decorate the back garden with string lights. We grilled vegetables, played music from someone's Bluetooth speaker, and set up long tables with mismatched dishes. My old caseworker came. So did the social worker, who first placed me with Dean's family for a week while we waited for space in my last group home. Several of the scholarship recipients were there. Dean's parents brought dessert. Nathan came and helped set up chairs. We didn't take speeches. We didn't toast anyone. Just passed food around and laughed. A reporter from a local newsletter showed up to take photos. They wrote a short piece the next day titled "Legacy Can Be Rewritten." They included a quote from one of the girls who lived in the house. She said, "This place made me feel like someone knew I existed." Tom heard about the article. He asked Nathan if I threw the dinner to send a message. Nathan said, "No. She sent a message by existing. I turned 30 last weekend. No venue, no loud music, no long guest list. Just a quiet gathering in the backyard of Haven House. I wanted something that made sense, something that felt real." We spent the day before setting up. The residents helped hang lanterns and wrap lights around the trees. Someone made paper flowers. Dean grilled vegetables and chicken in big trays while Nathan and 2 of the girls strung up photos on twine along the back fence. There were no invitations, just messages to people who had stayed, shown up, and mattered. Nathan came early with a card and a bottle of wine. Dean's parents brought their homemade cinnamon rolls. 2 of my old foster sisters flew in from different states. The first group of scholarship recipients arrived in carpools, dressed up and smiling. We started with dinner under the lights. Folding tables, mismatched plates, garden chairs. The air smelled like rosemary and smoke. Someone turned on soft music from a phone. It wasn't a party. It was something else. Nathan stood up first. He raised a plastic cup and talked about what family really means. About how it's not who you're born to, but who shows up without being asked. People clapped and nodded. Some got quiet. He sat back down without saying my name. He didn't need to. One of my foster sisters handed me a wrapped box. Inside was a photo album labeled Chosen Moments. It had pictures from bunk beds, birthdays in group homes, nights on the floor with flashlights and cheap snacks. She pointed out a photo of the 2 of us eating cereal in winter coats because the heat was broken. Then one of the scholarship girls stood up. She said she didn't have a speech, but she had a song. She pulled out a small speaker and played a recording of herself singing something she wrote. It was about second chances, and knowing you're wanted even when you don't come from anything. Dean spoke last. No notes. He talked about how I'd taken all the things that should have broken me and turned them into bricks to build something better. He pointed at the girls sitting at the tables and said they were proof. They clapped for themselves. Halfway through dessert, someone handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from the former director of my last foster home. She'd heard about Haven House and wrote to say she was proud of me. Said she still remembered the day I got my first job and how I stayed late to help clean the office. There were no texts from Miranda or Tom. No card. No email. No mention from Eli. One of the girls later told me she saw Miranda shopping at the boutique 2 blocks away during the party. She'd walked right past the garden fence and kept going. The night didn't feel like something was missing. It felt like everything that should be there was already present. That Monday, we held a meeting about expanding. With donations and support from local businesses, we had enough to start planning a second home. Dean's parents offered a plot of land they'd inherited just outside town. We drew up ideas for a full transitional campus, job training, temporary housing, therapy rooms, all in one place. Midweek, someone tagged me in a post. Eli's wife had written something online, calling Haven House a sob story sanctuary and saying people use trauma to get attention. It got a few likes and one comment from a mutual acquaintance saying not cool. Nathan messaged me the link. I read it once, then deleted it. Later that night, one of the girls asked why I wasn't mad. I told her if my story helps someone else, they can call it whatever they want. Then I helped her pick out shoes for a job interview. Nathan got a message from Miranda. It was an invite to dinner in memory of Joan. My name was written in the text for the first time in years. He forwarded it to me with no commentary. I showed it to Dean. We agreed to go, not for them, but to close a door that had been cracked open too long. I told Nathan this would be the last time. No more invites. No more events. This would be it. The dinner was at Tom and Miranda's house. Same curtains. Same hallway. Same photo wall full of smiles I was never in. We arrived just after 7. Dean carried a bottle of sparkling water. I didn't bring anything. Tom opened the door with a forced smile. Miranda gave a brief nod. Eli was already at the table, looking at his phone. He didn't speak. We sat down to a meal that looked nice, roast chicken, potatoes, wine glasses, but no one seemed to know how to start the conversation. The talk stayed shallow. Weather, local construction, Nathan's new project at work. No one mentioned why we were actually there. Halfway through the meal, Eli brought up the scholarship. He called it a publicity stunt. Said I'd used Joan's name to paint the family in a bad light. Dean set his fork down, looked straight across the table, and said, "That scholarship has already changed more lives than Joan ever tried to." No one responded. A few minutes later, Tom looked at me. He didn't raise his voice or get emotional. He just said, "I let things happen that I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." Miranda didn't say anything. She didn't agree. She didn't disagree. Just sat still, staring at her plate. I looked around the table, at the room where I ate so many meals in silence growing up. Then I said, "I used to wait for someone here to treat me like I belonged." I stopped waiting. Dean stood up first. I thanked them for dinner and followed him to the door. No one asked us to stay. No one walked us out. That night, I went through my phone, deleted Miranda's number, deleted Eli's. No final text. No explanations. Just cleared them out. It didn't feel like cutting ties. It felt like sealing a box that had already been empty for years.